Hi, my friends. Today, you are welcome again to the Rubasha Family Podcast. I'm Ndizeye Rubasha, and today we'll continue to share our view for our life. Today, I want to talk about our life in immigration. I have immigrated to Australia from Rwanda 25 years ago. As a Christian, as African, as a Christian, we live in Kenya. I and my wife, as a Christian, have life of going to church, praying to God. And we came to Australia. We continue to be Christians. We were welcomed by a church. Our home church became Bexley Presbyterian Church. And before that in Kenya, our church was Protestant. And when I was in Rwanda, I was born as a Catholic. So I was born Catholic in Rwanda. I moved Kenya, married my wife, Nyanji Niva, became Protestant. And we immigrate to Australia, and then we become Presbyterian. So we have experience of our life. So everything we left, we were being in church. We live a life of church as a Christian. All our children were born in church. We were born as Christians. They have been baptized. They have all Christians' names. All we grow up in Christian life. That was the way we grow up, and that was the way. I can't complain. We had good life. We had everything we do through our God and our prayers. And that life, we know how life should be and how it should be done. And here I'm telling you about how did we came to Australia. How did you get a visa to immigrate to Australia? Has anything to do with praying to God to come to Australia? Because that is what the main focus. We pray to come to Australia. We went to church, we went to everything. I and my wife, she was everywhere. We have somebody who was praying for us just to come to Australia to get visa. Pray, everything was God to pray to us to come to Australia. That time I was in Kenya. Always in Kenya, everything we're going church to church, prayer to prayers. We get saved. I got saved to get visa to come to Australia. So that is the journey to come to Australia. I and Rose were thinking there. We are lucky his brother, he was living in Australia, my wife's brother. And he's the one who gave us invitation letter to get visa. Even to get visa, it was every consistent. My wife Nyanji was going to prayer every day. So the prayers, it was every day think about visa. We pray to God and then we get visa. We continue to get visa, and somehow always there is issue between everything's there. There's something didn't happen well the time to come to travel. But again, my wife and our church, we continue praying to God. So every issue was just praying to God and to solve the issues. And we prayed to God again, and everything was settled. And we prayed to God. He has given people to welcome us in Australia. Every scenario to come, it was just praying to God. To have a good life, to have a way of life, it was just praying to God one by one until we are alive in Australia. And that time was a long time ago. It was 1999. And we are alive again. We are in the hands of church, and we continue to pray to God every Sunday. The first child, Emmanuel, the young one, was born here, and also still the prayers, praying to God, and everything was well. We were born there. So now, that's how my life as a Christianity is now. That is what we are talking about to you today now. So I'm not considered now as a Christian now as I used to thinking before. And that's the question. And now my main question here is that, so now all those journey in Australia as praying to God, as living in Australia, as a country where the majority they are Christian, that is the country known as Christianity. In Australia, there's churches everywhere. But now, from my experience now, I realize in all community and all immigrant, Australian white has declining from going to church. So church in Australia is declining. Church is losing the people to go to church. Like when we were our church, that's why we are talking about my experience. When we came 99, the majority in church were white and the families and other mixed immigrant. But as we grow, the church growing, the community of white in our church start getting lower, and the community for immigrants start coming. Some people from Pacific Islanders, New Zealand, Africans. So we are recruiting everywhere. Bangladesh, all the church grows, we could see the audience has changed. So that's the question we are talking today, why white community is declining from churching. Why you can't see now white, which is good to church, now majority, they are immigrant. And here also, the church, they're closing down. Why church are closing down in Australia? Church, they're losing the Christians to go to church. They are closing down, they change to the museum, they change to a different project in the CBD. So when I get the time, I will show you how church and the white numbers of white is declining. And for us, for Africans, it's getting even bigger and bigger. My question is, do you need to live a Christian life to get to what we desire? Is it that way? We have to be that. So why are we going to go through that prayer? The whole scenario, me to get visa and my family to come to Australia. Is it just to pray to go to heaven? Can I consider Australia was like heaven? For me, that's what we got to start seeing now, how the superiority and inferiority complex in community is. There is no white person who pray to God to immigrate to Africa, to immigrate to America. There is no white here, children here who were born here, who think a dream or their dreams is to move to Europe or to Africa or to America. But as when we thinking, we have dreaming to come to Australia. We have dream. We are asking God to immigrate. And that's what question now is coming to me now. How you look this community, how we live the land of God. We live the land of everything there. But as Africans, is the one who have to pray to God to have good opportunity. We have to pray to go through God to get everything we want, even to come to Australia, to get a visa to Australia, to find somebody to welcome us to Australia. And does the white people have to beg that God, to pray that God to achieve what you want to do. That is the difference I can't see now. So that's why I'm telling you, when I came to Australia now, what I was praying to God, everything to change to be Christianity. And I can see here now, people get good life here. White, they don't do that. I've been observing these things like, 20 years. And most of my friends will ask this question, why this country, people don't go to church and they have everything. And they have successful, they have life, they have jobs, everything. But we wonder why white people don't go to church, don't go to tell to God what He has done to them. Why only in our side is us what we're going to be there? That's the question. Now, as I grown, I changed. I don't pray to God in the church anymore. I learn, I change to think me, I'm God. I'm learning to have the way of other community, white community, live life. How can you live life, better life, honest life, good life, without going to church? Without going to pray to God like how we used to do that. And that is the question is, how can life could be different? How as Africans, we got to have God to save us. We got to have God to give us. We got to wait Jesus to save us only. Are we got to go on heaven by ourselves? Because I can see the difference. The white community doesn't do that. Have life. Have whatever they take to have everything there. My friends, this is what I was talking to you today. This is what they share today, is the view, is to understand. Maybe living a life of lies without knowing, or both is the same. My question is the same. Why as Africans were only who supposed to pray to God? Why the white community, they don't have that to pray to God? Do you think God has favored them? Is it God doesn't love us as African? Or is it just knowing what you are doing is not what is the reality? Or maybe this one they're doing something wrong, maybe later and anything is going to happening. But my friends, everything is here. What we are sharing is each of you, your view. It's your decision. Always we are talking about my experience. Before as a Christian and before as a normal person without identification for religious. Thank you, and always I continue to request your support for both channel, the podcast, the Rubasha Family Podcast, and also my personal YouTube channel, Ndizeye Rubasha. Thank you, and have a nice day wherever you are, and some have good evening.